Hello and let's talk about the UP budget. The state of Uttar Pradesh can be described as a laboratory for the Bharatiya Janata Party and the RSS. Ever since the Adityanath government came to power in 2017, the state has seen Hindutva on steroids. There are the farcical aspects such as the Romeo squads, but this is actually a deadly serious affair. Over the past few months, for instance, we saw a sustained attack on the Muslim community in the state, with horrific implications for its people and the country as a whole. The same government presented its latest budget on February 18th. And there was a lot of interest in this as the question arose with the thinking around economics that is prevalent in the BJP circles. Before we discuss this further, here are some important facts about the UP budget. The budget presented by Finance Minister Suresh Khanna on Tuesday was for Rs 5,12,860 crores. The budget is 33,159 crores more than that of last year. Observers noted that the Adityanath government seems to have borrowed from the Arvind Kejriwal strategy, since it has presented a scheme-heavy budget with some focus on welfare. The budget focuses considerably on unemployment and has brought two new schemes. One is the Mukhyamantri Shikshita Protsahan Yojana and the other is the Yuva Udyamita Vikas Yojana. Under the first scheme, that is the Mukhyamantri Shikshita Protsahan Yojana, young students will get Rs 2,500 per month along with vocational training. The second scheme will focus on the entrepreneurial skill of youngsters, ensuring 1 lakh new businesses, or so they claim. The budget is also trying to focus on wages and the MNREGA scheme. All this happens as UP is facing a huge unemployment crisis. The Labour Minister announced this year that registered unemployment in the state had risen by 58% in the last 2 years. And of course, since this is a BJP government, the budget is also focused on its pet areas. These include developing Ayodhya for tourism, expansion and beautification of the Kashi Vishwanath temple, and also building airports in Ayodhya. To talk more about this, we have with us economic analyst and columnist Anindyo Chakravarty. Hello Anindyo. Anindyo, we were supposed to start by asking you a question about this being the biggest budget in UP's history, but then as you pointed out in your article, every budget in every state is the biggest.
Yeah, and it's amazing that so many newspapers have actually reproduced this point, right? This is the biggest ever budget.
Right. But to start with, let's first talk about in a slightly general terms, in terms of the constraints states face today while framing budgets. And this is not only restricted to UP, but all the other states.
Yes.
So, especially with the GST and the kind of laws the centre has passed, as a state, what are the basic constraints they face?
So the biggest problem right now is that states have handed over all their rights to collect taxes to GST, right? And the centre gives them a certain amount. If I remember correctly, I think in this particular fiscal, which is 1920, the total amount is about 11.8 lakh crore. So let's round it off to about 12 lakh crore, which is being given, which is 55% of what the centre gets as revenues, tax revenues, which it has to give to states. And for states, if you look at all the states, their total expenditure, that works out to about 38%, if I'm not wrong, right? 38 to 40%. I might be a little off here and there, just quoting from memory. Now, what that means is that states have to raise funds from elsewhere. GST funds have gone down, you know that. And the government itself, the centre has said, we will not be able to give you what we had promised. So states are now wondering, where are we going to get the money from? What do they have the chance to levy on? I think the petrol, diesel, they get a certain amount of VAT. They can put it on liquor, on alcohol. The problem here is that many chief ministers now recognize that you can get the women's vote by banning alcohol, right? Through prohibition. So if you look at Bihar, that's what has happened. Many other states are saying we are going to go to that soon. And that means a very good source of income is going up probably for good reasons, because we know that in a lot of places that is a problem, right? And so states are in a bind how to spend, and they also don't have that many resources to raise funds. So I think if you look at it, how many states more or less are able to get about more than half of what they spend on themselves? That would be, I think, just Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and probably Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, just 4 odd states. Rest all have to depend on what the centre is giving. UP is one of them, right? And UP has managed to get a lot of money, I think, from the centre especially on Manrega, on PM Awas Yojana, where it has not fully given, but still, PM Kisan, it has managed to get a lot of this money through because it has been very closely tied politically.
Exactly, right.
When to launch it, the roles have come already from UP, you know when it has to be done. So some of that money has definitely gone to Uttar Pradesh, but there's not much money unless the state takes loans and hands it over, or states take debt.
Right.
So if you look at this particular budget, I think it says there that it's as the fiscal deficit of the state GDP, right, state's own income of that year is going to be less than 3%. They could have borrowed more, spent more.
Right.
Why they haven't, we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So specifically coming to Uttar Pradesh, we know that, like you also mentioned, it's a bit of a laboratory for the BJP in multiple aspects.
Yeah.
So we have seen the communal aspect of it specifically over the past few years, especially since Yogi came to power. But right now on the budget front, do you see it in some senses representing the kind of thinking that, the economic thinking that the BJP is going through?
You know, when leading up to the budget, there were many stories in Hindi newspapers, which you could see of at least the UP editions, which said the same thing. Which said the same thing. They said that the Kejriwal formula, the victory formula, has helped Kejriwal. All the subsidies it has given, all the incentives it has given, that has helped. Power, free bus rides, that has helped them. So we need to replicate it.
Exactly.
Right? And Kejriwal used some of Yogi's formula, all the soft Hindu, Jai Bajranga, saying Hanuman Chalisa. So that helped him. So why would Yogi not pick it up from Kejriwal himself? Of course, Kejriwal's is not an innovation. We know that Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister, has done that throughout his life, right? If you look at any of the schemes, most of the schemes have the Prime Minister's picture there. These are schemes which you directly identify that the PM has given me. PM Kisan, 6,000 rupees, right? PM Ujjwala, always with the PM's photograph, even on every petrol pump, right? So you know that the PM, Modi ji gave me this cylinder, right? So this is a technique that has helped Narendra Modi come back to power in 2019. And I think that Yogi Adityanath is preparing for 2022 right now.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually also a model that was maybe first borrowed from Tamil Nadu, where the politicians in the 80s and 90s almost perhaps patented that style, so to speak.
Absolutely patented.
Right. But specifically with Uttar Pradesh, it is going through a bit of a crisis. You pointed out how the unemployment specifically has become a big issue there. And so could you talk a bit about what actually might be happening with these schemes?
So if you look at the UP government's own data, right, the Labour Minister presented it in the Vidhan Sabha in Assembly in February 7th, it says 33 lakh people, educated young people, don't have jobs, which is 58% more than what it was in July 2018, when it was about 21 lakh. So another additional 12 lakh people have got educated and they haven't got jobs. This is a big crisis. These are the people who are sitting there, they have nothing to do. There's a very good article which came out in the print and which gives a detail about, and also I think NewsClick has done several such pieces on unemployment. UP unemployment is specifically an issue that the alternate media, the independent media, the websites have actually been covering. Where you see all these people sitting around playing cricket, no work. They get onto Twitter, they get onto social media, they're watching, they're probably making TikTok videos here and there. That's what they're busy doing. And it's potentially a source of which can be turned into a Hindu-Muslim thing as well, but also a potential problem. So, you know, no one can only go by ideology and they have to depend on something. So the Yogi government is trying to do that. But as I said, that if I look at total unemployment, now I would think it's difficult to get the exact numbers, but I would think that about, CMI says that about 10% unemployment throughout 2019 in UP. What is the total number in absolute numbers? I would say between 50 to 55 lakh people are unemployed. Another 3 crore people, are people who have stopped looking for jobs because they never got it, And they've now crossed that age when they can get a job. I mean, you're 40 and you did a BA or an MA,
right,
and you haven't got a job. No one's going to hire you, right? So at best, you'll be sitting around doing nothing, be one of those, disguised unemployed people somewhere. Therefore, I would say approximately 2.5 crore to 3 crore people are people who do not have work or have stopped looking for work in UP. That's a huge number. 2 new schemes have been announced by the UP government. One is called, I think, the Mukhyamantri Shikshuta Protsahan Yojana, which will give about 80,000 people
monthly
internships.
Yes.
And monthly stipend. Now that's a great thing for the people who are giving the internship, right? You just pay 2,500 rupees, which the government will pay, right? The center pays 1,500, the state government pays 1,000, and you get them to work for 10-12 hours a day.
Exactly.
It's basically free labor subsidized by the governments of UP and India. But 80,000, right, approximately. Another 1 lakh, they're claiming, are going to be able to set up their own businesses. They'll be helped through something called the Yuva Udyamita Protsahan Yojana, something like that, right?
Basically, district level hubs.
District level. It's called Yuva. The acronym is Yuva. And 1 lakh people will be helped to set up their own, like startup. Right? And if I work out the average, I think it works out about 1 lakh rupees per head is the maximum. But if you look at the administrative costs and all that, I don't think that's the amount people will get.
Right.
It'll be done for about a year. Now, 1 lakh, more than 1 lakh they're claiming, 80,000 added 2 lakh people. Right? 2 lakh out of about 50 lakh. What is that? 4%.
Right.
So there is a huge, what I call a youth-sized hole in the vote base of Yogi Adityanath, which of course helps, which is a problem, but it helps when you're the Ram Mandir Trust and the Ram Mandir is going to be built over the next 2 years.
And the budget has quite a few allocations for many of these projects also. But finally, to go again to a slightly more general question, what is, especially from the experience of the previous years, including the schemes for the centre. So we have seen states, for instance, like Kerala, which are focused on building cooperatives. And say, even spent considerable amounts of their budget on that, the Kurubashri project targeting women, for instance. On the other hand, how do you evaluate the success of schemes like this, where, for instance, you have this generalized notion of vocational training, or this notion of a district level startup hub, which sounds very great, but even the example of Startup India itself was not very optimistic or not very hopeful. So how do you evaluate actually the success of these schemes?
They don't succeed.
Right.
Obviously, because, we have seen these similar schemes going around. Even this so-called startup scheme or self-employment scheme that the Yogi government is starting is essentially clubbing together various schemes where they had been giving money, right? Which is about 1,200 odd crore rupees. That is going to continue. What it does is that people get some cash in their hands. That is all. And that keeps them going for the next time. But I mean, there's no demand in the market. Is 1,200 crore rupees going to suddenly generate demand and create businesses where people will create businesses and start selling things to people, right? If 1 lakh people start new businesses, then all they're going to do is they're going to push down prices of goods that are already not being sold, or services that are already not being sold. So we know that these don't work. What does work is that when people get cash, I think that when we think that do people want work, I think people have forgotten that they'll ever get work. I think at least, if you look at the labor force, right, working age population of India, that's about 2/3 of India's population. And India's labor force participation rate, which is people who are working or are actively looking for jobs, is just about 40%, right? 70% odd is men, 27%, or I think 17% in women. I have forgotten the exact number. People say, oh, that's because women are not looking for jobs anymore because their men are earning enough. That should mean that when women look for jobs, they should be getting all the jobs. But female unemployment is actually higher than male unemployment, which suggests that even when women go looking for jobs, they don't get it. So the point is that these things do not work. But we know that job creating schemes do not get you votes. Otherwise, the UPA wouldn't have ended up getting... I know Manrega was a failure towards the end of it, and they didn't put in much money. But even then, even those who are getting work under Manrega weren't identifying it with the UPA. So these schemes don't really get you jobs. You put in things to get people some kind of employment, they don't work. So this is a problem with the polity itself. So any politician would want to be quickly associated with a handout. I'm using a...
as opposed to, say, a cooperative structure where there's actually capacity building at a much more sustained basis.
Absolutely.
Yes, right.
And unless even a political party which is ruling says that, okay, I want votes. I mean, it's a little silly for us to say, oh, don't look for votes.
Exactly.
Right? They're there to win and maybe even to be positive, to even implement what they want to do. They need to have a system by which they can get into that and get votes by empowering people.
Exactly.
Right now, that is not the route to get votes, and we've seen that across states. Not just Yogi, not just Kejriwal, but we knew that Mayawati used to do that as well. We know that's happening in Telangana. We know that's happening across the board in every state.
Right. Thank you so much, Arvind.
Thank you for having me.
Yesterday was the first day of the Supreme Court mandated mediation on the Shaheen Bagh protests. The 3 Supreme Court appointed mediators are talking to the protesters to see if any alternative arrangement can be made regarding the site of the protest. Here's a ground report from Shaheen Bagh.
रामलीला के मैदान में जो बैठक कर रहे हैं जो हम एक ही से ना उठे तुम एक ही से ना उठो हम एक बाल बराबर बिना है
हमने जिस आंदोलन को 0 डिग्री टेम्परेचर से लगातार 16 घंटे दिन रात प्रदर्शन करते हुए और यहाँ तक पहुँचाया हमारे संविधान की जीत साफ नजर आ रही है।
मैं यूँ कहना चाहूँ यूँ कह रहा है रोक खोल दो 50 बच्चे हमारे जामिया में मारे उसका जिम्मेदार कौन है बताओ इसका जवाब दो। किसी की आँख फोड़े किसका सिर फोड़ा किसके टांग में लगे किसके पाँव में अस्पताल में डाल दिया उसके जिम्मेदार बताओ कौन है पुलिस वाले है क्या अमीषा है क्या मोदी जी।
ये शाहीन बाग है इसे शायद कोई जानता नहीं था मैं भी नहीं जानती थी 15 दिसंबर से पहले मैं भी नहीं जानती थी कि शाहीन बाग नाम की कोई जगह दिल्ली में है लेकिन आज शाहीन बाग पूरे भारत का ताज बन चुका है। लड़ने के लिए उसने पूरे भारत को ही नहीं बल्कि पूरे वर्ल्ड को ये दिशा दिखाई है कि अपने अधिकार को अपने धर्मनिरपेक्ष अधिकार को अपने संविधान को बचाने के लिए हम लड़ेंगे।
हक जो पब्लिक स्पेसेस हैं उसको यूज करने का
जी जी एग्जैक्टली जो वो हक है
जी।
तो उस हक को बचाने के लिए मैम अगर हम ये रोड खोलते हैं और अपना प्रोटेस्ट यहाँ से उठाते हैं तो हम अपनी जनरेशन्स का जो हक है यहाँ रहने का उसको स्टेक पर लगाएंगे। यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस। तो अगर जो लोग जाम में फंस रहे हैं तो वो 2 घंटे जाम में फंस रहे हैं लेकिन हमारी जनरेशन्स को आगे न जाने कितनी जनरेशन्स को ये प्रूव करने में लग जाएगा कि हाँ हम इंडियंस हैं और हम घुसपैठिए नहीं हैं। हमारे बाप दादा यहीं पर पैदा हुए यहीं रहे उनका खून भी इस मिट्टी में शामिल है।
हम यहाँ बैठे हैं हमारी आवाज़ सुनने के लिए मजबूर हुए हैं लेकिन अगर हमें कहीं कोने में फेंक दिया तो सालों साल बैठे रहेंगे कोई हमें सुनने नहीं आएगा। हम मरे या जिए इसलिए जब तक सरकार यहाँ आकर यहाँ ना भी आए वहीं से संवैधानिक रूप से बोल दे संसद में बोल दे कि जो हमने पास किया था उसे हम वापस कर रहे हैं हम अभी हट जाएंगे इसी वक्त हट जाएंगे।
नारा तो ये दिया गया था हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर के थ्रू कि सबका साथ सबका विकास। हमें विकास की जगह विनाश क्यों नजर आ रहा है हमें विनाश क्यों नजर आ रहा है सबका विश्वास।
मेरी आपसे ये बहुत बड़ी एक रिक्वेस्ट है कि इस आंदोलन को जिस तरह की आप हमारे पास बात करने के लिए आए हैं मैं चाहूंगी कि इस आंदोलन को ऐसे ही चालू है जब तक कि सरकार हमारी बात को नहीं मान रही है। और हम तो बात करने के लिए आप आए हैं हम बात कर रहे हैं मीडिया आती है हम बात करते हैं लेकिन उन्हें किस बात का डर है। अगर वो आए हम उनकी रक्षा करेंगे हम खड़े उनकी रक्षा के लिए उन्हें कोई हाथ नहीं लगाएगा वो बात तो करने आए।
आप लोगों से सुनकर हम हमारे जहन में लेकर एक आज़ादी का पैगाम सुनकर हम वापस जा रहे हैं पर हम कल इंशाल्लाह वापस आ जाएंगे आते रहेंगे।
And we now move to another pressing issue in India, hunger. There's been a lot of celebration over the fact that the cereal output for 2019-20 has been a record 290 million tons almost. But one thing we do know with this government, that behind every number it presents, there's another story. So is everything hunky-dory on the hunger front? We have Pranjal here to discuss that with us. Pranjal, thanks for joining us. So, like I said, there's obviously the number is very impressive, 292 million tons almost. And it's been touted as a record and as a vindication of the government's efforts almost. But actually, could you break down this, when you break down these numbers, what does it show?
So Prashant, one thing we must clearly understand, that what this government has been doing is that even if there's a small increase in something, they would present it as if they have achieved something very big.
Exactly.
So if you look at the record growth in last more than a decade, primarily starting from 2007 to what we are looking at 2020, on an average it's close to 2% of the growth that we are witnessing. But meanwhile, we have periods like 2010, 2013, 2015 and 2016 where there's a decline. I mean, the production has gone in negative.
Right.
So a lot of it is also dependent on weather conditions, how the weather is there, whether it's rain or not. All of this is dependent on that. So as Subodh has written in NewsClick, one would say that this is just a marginal increase in the production, and what government is claiming is not right. And it's not so a great jump, it won't be able to meet the needs of the people.
Right.
So that's one of the basic questions that arises from it. The other question that should basically be asked out of it is that what is the availability that is there to the people?
That's a more appropriate metric.
Metric to find out. When in India you have close to 200 million people who are suffering from malnutrition. So is the availability of food there or not? So that all those things need to be taken into account. So I would say that when you take total productions, there are a lot of things which are taken into account when you calculate what is available for the people.
Right.
Set of production is kept for seeds, then a part of it is wasted, lost in the entire process of farming.
Right.
Then in the transportation, a part of it is also exported to the other countries. And then there's also demand within the country from the companies which are into food manufacturing.
Right.
So they might ask for biscuits, they might ask for other products. So the net availability to the people is calculated after subtracting all of these things.
Absolutely.
Okay, so when you do that, then there's hardly any left for people. So the interesting part of it is that if you actually look at how there has been a growth in the food production, if you look at a thing which was there in 1951, which is 150...
The availability.
Availability of the food grain, that was 54.4 million tons. It tripled to 158.6 million tons in 1991.
Right.
But from 1991 to 2019, it has gone just to 285 million.
Right.
So, I mean, it's easy to calculate the growth rate that in 40 years, there's a triple happening. But when you look at population, the population has grown in much bigger sense since then. So the availability for the people is still a low figure.
Yeah, and as you said, if 200 million people are suffering from malnutrition, and especially a large number of children, it also goes to show the extent of the crisis. And one problem I think would be with the celebration around these numbers is it also basically kind of disguises the agrarian crisis that is going on in India right now.
Yeah, so Prashant, you also need to understand that there has been a massive shift when it comes to the agriculture sector. There has been a massive migration to the cities.
Right.
People are leaving farming as an occupation because there's no return there now. Most of it in a country like India, which claims to be one of the developing countries and wants to become a $5 trillion economy,
Exactly.
is not investing enough in its agriculture. So as a result, people have to rely on the weather, whether there will be good rain or where there will be bad rain, basically. So if it's a bad rain, the production goes down. If it's a good rain, the production is better. So there's no proper system in place to take into account all these things. When you look at, for example, the canal system that should have been there to ensure water in the fields, that has not been maintained. The other problem is also the problem of storage. So on occasions, close to 3-4 years back, you would see a massive reports of food grains rotting in the open.
Right.
So those kinds of problems are there. The storage facilities are still the one that are controlled by the government, the warehousing. It's very limited in number. The facilities are not good. Food grains get rotten there. There's problem of insects, pesticides and all those things. Now if you look at the budget right now, the taxes on fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides that have been increased. So when all these things are happening, the burden on farmers is increasing.
Right.
The 2014 manifesto of the Modi government promised that they will give, as per the minimum support price will be as per the recommendation of the Swaminathan Commission, which is 1.5 of the total cost of production. Has that happened? No.
Exactly.
The farmers' organizations have been coming out with the statements that be it Rabi crop or Kharif crop, the government is not even giving what the cost of production is. So as a result, the farmers are forced to go via middlemen and are losing. They're not able to recover their costs. Onions, few days back, when were being sold for 100 rupees in the market, farmers were forced to sell it to the middlemen at 8 rupees per kg. So those kinds of things are there. So if you look at what people are getting to eat, there's hardly either 1% increase or 1% decrease depending on how the weather situation in the country is. So I would say that the picture is not that
Be very skeptical
shiny.
of the
Yes.
government's interpretation of
Yes.
numbers.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Prajan. That's all we have for this episode of Let's Talk. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. with the major news developments of the day. Until then, keep watching NewsClick.